All right, welcome to another video. Now for this video we are going to focus on confidence interval questions. So at the beginning of the class, for those that have attended from the beginning, I have mentioned that approach this topic this way. Every question that you are going to answer, or every question, any question that you are going to get either in your test, assignment, exam, and so on, just needs you to follow the same steps. So therefore, what you should focus on is, when I'm asked a certain question, what are the steps that I need to follow? And that is what we are going to do. When you have the steps, everything else become easy. Now, for this specific topic, we are going to focus on confidence. So let me just start from the beginning for those that haven't done that. So first of all, we are doing confidence interval for variance, and what you're seeing on the screen is now the questions for that. Okay, every time they ask you to do confidence interval for variance, I want you to follow the steps that I'm going to show you now. And yeah, so when in the question, so I'll explain with all these 4 questions. Okay, when the question says find variance, and then in that question there is the word confidence, the first thing you need to do is write down this formula you are seeing here. In fact, all your confidence interval questions or answers should look like this. The part where you plugged in the values, then your answers. Now, when you have this in mind, it becomes easier to work these things out. All right, because you know, okay, if I have my formula, then I know what is in the formula, then it becomes easier. So let's start with question 4. If at the last part of question 4, it says find 95% confidence variance. Those are the keywords. The moment they say find confidence for variance, then immediately write down here. In fact, I want you to pause the video and just show you know the formula, because that is the starting point. If you forget this formula, that's it. Forget the marks for that question. So pause the video, write this formula as many times as you can until the point where you can say, okay, now I have memorized the formula. If I go in the exam, I'll be able to remember it. Pause the video and do that. Now, if you are confident, you know the formula to use every time they say find confidence interval for variance. Now, the next thing you want to master is how to identify now those things in the formula. Our formula has n, it has s squared, then it has this at the bottom, and then on the other side it still has n, it has s squared, and then it has this one on the at the bottom as well. I want you to keep in mind so that it doesn't become confusing. This value and this value here, you are going to get it from the table. All right, you are going to get it from the table, the chi-square table. Just keep in mind that I'm going to get this from the chi-square table. So some people say, am I going to multiply this to whatever? No, you are not. You are going to get 2 values. Those 2 values are what you use to get that value from the table. But let's start from the top part. Our formula has n. N is the sample size. So if you look at the question here, they say suppose a sample of 30. This 30 is what you are going to plug where there is n. That's why we have 30 minus 1 here. So the same thing on the other side, 30 minus 1. The n part, the value you plug at n is a sample size. Then the s squared, because it's n minus 1 times s squared, so the s squared is the variance. Now in this question, we are given standard deviation. Now remember, to get variance, you square the standard deviation. But if you are already given deviation, the variance, then you just plug it in. But here we have to square because we are given standard deviation. Remember, standard deviation is s. So 12.23 squared for that part. So it's the same on both sides. So I don't think that is an issue with anybody. Okay, I don't think that is an issue. 30 minus 1 times 12.23 squared on both sides. Now, the other part now is that. Okay. The bottom part. Okay, so how do I get this value? Now, where did this 60 come from? I want you to pay attention here, because that is only the only part now. All the others are straightforward. Now, how do we get this part? First of all, the L is assigned to show you where you are going to get your values from. All right, ignore the x squared. You have to be alpha over 2, comma, n minus 1. So these are the two values we need to get our values. Now, how do we get this alpha? So alpha is 100 minus the confidence level you are finding. In this case, we're finding 95. So alpha, this here is 100 minus that 95, which gives 5%. So meaning our alpha is 5%, and write it as a decimal. So 0.05 divided by 2. 0.05 divided by 2, that gives you 0.0025. Okay, we're still on this part. I'm explaining where did we get 45. The 45 that closes this bottom part with. So it's alpha. You first get alpha. You just follow what the formula is saying. Alpha over 2. Now alpha over 2 is 0.05 over 2, which gives us 0.025. And then comma, n minus 1 is 30 minus 1. So we get 29. Now I have two values. The question is, what do I do with these two values that I got? Now you go to your z table. You go to your chi-square table that is attached at the end of your question paper. Now the chi-square table is 0. So you look for the value 0.025 and 29. Where they meet, that is the value you are going to put at the bottom. Let's see where that 45 came from. Go to this table here. Okay, go to this table here, the one written the chi-square distribution. Now what are you looking for? Remember, we're looking for 0.025 and 29. So we want to see where do these meet. So this is a column for 0.025. Okay, this is a column for 0.025, and our 29 is on the list here. So they meet at 45. Okay, this column and this column, they meet at 45.72229. That is, we got this value here, and you just plug it in. So it's the same thing with the left side. Now it's all what formula is saying. The formula is saying 1 minus alpha over 2. What is alpha? Alpha over 2 is what you got on what you used on the other side. So what is 1 minus 0.025? Is 0.975. Okay, 0.975, comma, n minus 1 is 30 minus 1, which is 29. Now you go to your table again, you look for 0.975 and 29. Where those two meet, that is your value. So the 29 and the 0.9797, they meet 60.07. So we are just going to formula the 16.047. From there, you just get your answers, your two answers. You just put this on your calculator. 30 minus 1 times 12 is the same thing on the other. 30 minus 1 times 22 divided by that, you get your answer. Anytime you do confidence interval for variance, those are the steps you are going to use. So rather focus on the steps and the formula. Just master where do I get that and that, then it becomes easy for you. As I think one example is fine, but let's do one more just to be clear. Now we have another example here. Now they say construct confidence for variance. First step, please just always do it my way. It makes it easy. If you try to read too much into the question, it becomes also an issue, then you get overwhelmed. Just do it my way. If you understand what the question is asking, write down the formula for what it's asking. Each question has its own formula. Most of the questions are calculations, and those calculations require you to use. The question says construct confidence interval for variance. So my first step to write down my formula. Then the next part is now identifying the n, the s squared, and the two values. Now remember, these values we get them from the table. N is a sample size. So if the question says a random sample of 25, meaning my n is 25. This 25 is my sample size. And they said s squared is a variance. So they said a variance of 12.25. So I put 12.25 where there is s squared. Then the part is sorted. N minus 1 s squared, I know my values. Now the part. Alpha is significance level. So if they say significance level of 5%, you don't need to minus from 100. Okay? Only when they say confidence interval. But if they give you a significance level, that is already your alpha. You don't have to get it. It's 0.05, it's 5%. So 0.05 divided by 2, comma, n minus 1. Okay? So 0.05 divided by 2 is 0.025. N minus 1 is 24. So we go back to the table again, and we are going to look for 0.025 n. Limit. That is where we are going to put at the bottom here. So go to our table. We look for 0.05 here, and that is our value. Then we look for 24 here, and we check. So if you check nicely, these two, they meet at 39 point, and that will be our value. So this 39, that's how we got it. And you do the same thing. 1 minus the value used on the left side, meaning 1 minus the 0.05, and the n minus 1 is 24. They meet at this number. So simply put this on your calculator, and then you get your answers. If it's a simple question, that's just how your answer should be presented. Formula, plug in your values, then get your answers, then you are done. All right, now once you're done watching this video, please go find a variance question, follow the same steps the way I do it, and then test yourself if you understood that part.